Hello guys, in this video we are going to talk about something really important, and for some of you it might be hard to hear. As someone who was diagnosed with ADHD later in life, I want to share some personal thoughts about the journey of living with a diagnosed ADHD brain. I'm 35 years old at the time of recording this video. I was diagnosed 8 months ago, and since then my life has been changing every single day. In this video I want to share my experience and thoughts about living with attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder, and why I don't actually believe it's a disorder at all. So without any further ado, let's dive into this important topic and explore the unique abilities our brain have given us at this point in life. Before we start, as YouTube requires, give this video a like if you're curious about the topic, and feel free to share your thoughts of your own story in the comments below. And one more thing I need to mention. I'm not a medical advisor or specialist. Everything I share on this channel comes from my personal experiences and opinions. So if something I say resonates with you and you're thinking about taking any medical steps, please consult your doctor first. Don't take any actions without professional guidance. Thank you. The first thing I experienced after getting diagnosed was that you start to feel like a different person. And that means you begin to change, sometimes drastically. It happens right after that moment when you realize that so much of what you've been through was, in many cases, because of your ADHD. Don't get me wrong when I say everything, but as you start learning more about your brain and about yourself, you'll begin to connect a lot of past situations to your ADHD. Like those boring times at school, university or work when you felt like you were bored by everything you had to do. In reality, it's just that your brain has always craved novelty. So now, after getting diagnosed, you'll probably have that aha moment and start finding answers to questions you couldn't explain before. You'll become a different person because now you've got a whole new side of yourself to learn about. And that leads to the second truth about having ADHD and living with it. You'll have to spend more time educating yourself. You'll need to learn how to use this new knowledge and finally get the right manual to operate the unique system your brain runs on. There are many opinions about ADHD itself. Some scientists say certain parts of your brain didn't fully develop. Others believe it might come from early physical trauma even in the womb. There is also strong evidence that it's hereditary, something we may have inherited from our parents. And honestly, I agree with that to some extent. You may also try ADHD meds like methylphenidate, Adderall, Concerta or others depending on what your therapist prescribes and what's available in your country. You'll probably read books about your brain, talk to coaches and connect with other people who've also been diagnosed. You'll literally start building new connections with yourself. It's kind of like learning how to ride a bike all over again, but now you realize your bike was built differently from the start. So after getting diagnosed, you begin rewriting what you know about yourself, shifting your understanding toward the fact that your brain simply works differently. Simple, right? The truth about learning yourself when you have ADHD is that your brain will always find a new way to crave novelty, and that craving can actually be a good thing, because getting to know yourself is a pretty fascinating process. So go ahead, learn, analyze and begin your journey. But it's not all positive. There are some difficult parts too, like feeling undervalued by people who are really close to you. Unfortunately, not everyone is tolerant or understanding of people with different brains. When you start sharing your experience and exploring this journey, people with neurotypical brains, or even those who don't believe ADHD is real, might say things like, everyone has ADHD these days. But the most important thing you can say in response is that people with ADHD aren't just distracted sometimes. We are struggling with symptoms constantly. Every minute we are trying to find ways to trick or motivate our brains into doing even the simplest tasks, especially the ones that don't give us that spark or sense of novelty. And what the hardest part? Sometimes the people closest to you can say things that really hurt. For example, my mom once told me that everything I said about ADHD wasn't true, that all human problems come from laziness or personality type. The wild part is she shows every sign of ADHD herself. She just refuses to accept it. Other people might say, well, I'm not always motivated either, or sometimes I can't get out of bed too. But the difference is, we live with these things every single day. Our minds are constantly jumping, reacting to every sound, every movement, every little thought that pops up. It's not just a once in a while thing, it's every moment. And if you want to know how I deal with some of these things, after this video you can check out other one where I share useful tips for brains like ours that live with ADHD. But what I really want you to understand is this. You don't owe anyone an explanation about your ADHD, especially if they're not willing to listen or accept that brain differences like ours even exist. And even more than that, if someone says something that feels harmful to you, try to distance yourself from them. At least for a while, especially if it's someone close to you. You don't need to convince them or try to educate them. What you need is to learn how to live with it yourself. I have more amazing thoughts on that, so hit subscribe to stay in the loop, because I have so much more to share about ADHD, men's health, well-being and relationships. Let's stay connected, and now let's move on to another hard truth about living with ADHD. Like I said earlier, we are going to lose some people along the way who just don't get us. I don't know about you, but I've always thought of myself as pretty introverted. Or at least I believed I was. But you know what? When I really looked back at my life, I realized that there were so many times when I actually enjoyed being around people. When I was 15, I was part of this big subculture scene. We had meetups, we drank together, talked for hours, listened to music and had some awesome conversations. After that, I went through a pretty serious gaming addiction that lasted almost 2 years. And even then, we used to gather in big groups, like 300 people meeting up in the city center, talking about the game and building friendships. Then social media came in and we started closing ourselves off from the real world. So, what am I trying to say with this little story from my life? I want to say that people with ADHD often think they're introverted, but the most powerful thing is we actually have a huge community out there. If you take an introverted ADHD brain and put it in an environment where people understand the core principles of how our brains work, you'll see how open and connected we can actually become. That's the truth I want to get across. You need to share your experience with others through social media, in online communities, or in real life. Find like-minded people, join ADHD groups, Discord servers, Facebook communities. Just meet someone for coffee and talk about your experience. Learn from theirs too. So this idea that ADHD makes it hard to communicate or connect with people, it's not actually that big of a problem. And if you don't have anyone nearby who shares your experience, or you are not ready to talk about it publicly, just email me. I will reply. We can share our thoughts with each other. It's not as hard as it feels. And now the next hard truth about having ADHD is one I personally hate, but still hear all the time from other creators here on YouTube. You need to build the perfect system for your brain. I've already talked about this in my video on tips for ADHD, but let's go over it again, logically. If one part of our brain didn't develop fully, if our dopamine regulation system doesn't function properly, then of course we are going to struggle with switching tasks. Of course we are going to get bored easily. Of course we will have a hard time listening to long speeches or holding conversations with people who think slower than we do. So what can we do? I'm very positive about ADHD meds. It's simple. If you really want to do something you normally can't because it's boring or you always end up procrastinating, just take the pill. It's a game changer. You don't need to take them every day, but think about it this way. When someone is diagnosed with diabetes, do they question whether or not to take their meds? So why do we? ADHD is a well-known condition and there are plenty of medication options that can help our brains function a little more smoothly. I don't mean making us normal, I mean helping us do boring things, stay on track and be more productive. So yes, take the pills if they help you. I also want to mention that you really need to try specific psychotherapy or coaching designed for ADHD brains like ours. Because if you can't find the right kind of therapy for your ADHD, you might miss out on something just as powerful, or even more powerful than medication. In fact, with the right therapy, the improvements in your life can be just as strong as what you'd get from meds. And in some cases, therapy can have a longer lasting effect, because it helps you understand your patterns and build real tools for everyday life. So, the best strategy? Combine both medication and ADHD specific therapy. That's where the real transformation happens. Next, as you keep learning about your brain and your life, try to find a system that works for you. It could be using notes, focusing on just one task at a time, breaking big tasks into smaller steps, or using a Pomodoro timer to structure your work and rest periods. Reward yourself. Take breaks when you finish something. You know, we don't just have physical energy, we also have mental capacity. And if you pay attention to yourself, you'll start to notice how drained you feel after spending a day doing things you didn't enjoy. That's true for most people, but with ADHD, we get drained a lot faster. And I feel this a lot. Especially when I get into hyperfocus. I feel great, I'm productive, I enjoy it. But when the task ends and I have to go back to boring mode, everything I need to do in that mode just drains my energy. And it's not like I'm falling asleep or anything, I just feel deeply bored by what I'm doing. And I know you know that feeling too. It's the same with those mornings when you wake up and feel like you have no energy to even get out of bed. Your brain is just like, why should we? And that's not exactly depression, you don't feel sad. You just don't want to start the day. That's it. And what makes it worse? If your phone is next to you. Oh boy, that's how we kill our mornings. So when I talked about building a system for yourself, I meant you really have to create a daily routine and stick to it. Like, really stick to it. Because that's the only way it works for us. Mornings, for me, are a struggle. If I don't have to go anywhere, I can easily just lie in bed reading news, scrolling social media, or getting lost in a book. Because why get out of bed? That's why I'm now building a system that works for me. I'm getting used to taking cold showers in the morning. I've got a supplement routine I follow every day. I meditate in the morning, and honestly, I'm probably going to build an hour-by-hour schedule for myself, because that's the only way I can stay active and move toward my goals. And actually, goals are a huge part of my system too. You always have to remember your mental capacity. All those little decisions you make every day eat up energy. So if you want to live a more fulfilled and happy life, you need to get rid of as many everyday decisions as possible. Make them automatic. And here's the most important thing you need to know if you've been diagnosed with ADHD. We are not sick. We are just wired differently. More creative, more emotional, more unique. This idea has really been resonating with me lately. Instead of saying there is something wrong with our brain, what if we focus on the creative side of ADHD? Because people with attention deficit and hyperactivity disorder are incredibly creative. We have energy, we have passion, we care deeply about the things we do, when those things actually interest us. So if you've just been diagnosed with ADHD, don't be sad. Don't be mad. You're a special person in this world. And now you know that. Now it's time to build habits and structure for yourself. And finally, channel this unique brain of yours into something powerful. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. I really appreciate your support. I want to build a community here, a real one, so leave a comment, like the video if it spoke to you, and check out my other videos. I'm sure you'll find something interesting and useful there too. I'm Dmitry, and these are my thoughts. Thank you, and please love yourself.